The path to a longer, more vibrant life is often presented as a complex regimen of exotic supplements and restrictive diets, a pervasive belief that the secret lies in some external, costly intervention. This widespread misconception overlooks the profound, yet accessible, power of intentional daily habits. Simple choices that compound over time to architect a formidable defense against cognitive decline and physical fatigue. The truth, as illuminated by masters of inner discipline, such as Heng, is that lasting vitality is forged in the forge of the present moment, through the consistent, focused cultivation of inner resources. By tracing the foundational principles of mental clarity and energy management, it becomes evident that a structured, mindful approach to even the most mundane daily acts can radically redefine the later decades of life. The exploration that follows will detail a clear, actionable framework for harnessing focus and metabolic energy, showing precisely how an ancient, disciplined wisdom translates into tangible gains in daily vitality, senior wellness, and age with energy. This journey reveals how deliberate practice in a specific, often overlooked daily ritual can become the key leverage point for sustained longevity. The morning ritual. Anchoring the day's cognitive cadence, the first moments after waking are not merely a transition from sleep, but the most potent window for setting the neurological tone of the entire day. For an individual focused on daily vitality, understanding this principle is crucial, as the modern tendency is to immediately engage with external stimuli, a reflexive grab for the phone or a rush toward the first cup of coffee, a habit that immediately forfeits cognitive control. Such an approach allows the day to dictate the person's focus rather than the person directing the day's energy. This loss of control creates a diffuse, reactive mental state that erodes the capacity for deep work and mindful presence, accelerating the feeling of mental exhaustion long before midday. The brain, immediately flooded with fragmented information, expends valuable energy resources without commensurate gain. A mechanism in this daily anchoring involves the regulation of the autonomic nervous system. Rushing or immediately engaging in stimulating, often stressful, digital input activates the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight state. This floods the system with cortisol, which, while beneficial in acute stress, is chronically damaging to the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. Conversely, a quiet, intentional start, perhaps involving a short period of breath work or simply mindful observation, activates the parasympathetic system, promoting a state of rest and digest, which is conducive to focused, sustained attention. This deliberate shift preserves attentional reserves for more complex tasks later in the morning. Heng Yi's philosophy emphasizes the power of stillness as a precursor to motion. He suggests that discipline is not about doing more, but about controlling the inner environment. Applied to the morning, this means viewing the first 20 minutes as sacred ground for internal alignment. A person might dedicate this time to a simple, repetitive movement or a concentrated contemplation of a single object, ensuring that the mind is not allowed to jump between anxieties or task lists. This deliberate non-doing allows the prefrontal cortex to awaken in a state of calm clarity, optimizing its capacity for executive function and decision-making throughout the forthcoming hours. It is an author-anchored applied insight that the true measure of morning success is not in the tasks completed, but in the quality of attention established. However, a counterexample or limitation exists in environments where true stillness is immediately impossible, such as a caregiver setting or a small, busy home. In these instances, the principle shifts from demanding physical quietude to demanding mental insulation. The focus must be placed on performing the necessary early tasks with the utmost singularity of attention, transforming the mundane into a meditative practice. The limitation is overcome by accepting the external chaos while maintaining internal peace. The mind becomes a fortress against the surrounding noise, transforming the task of preparing breakfast, for example, into a single, focused activity rather than a scattered, multitasked chore. A profound applied scenario involves the simple act of preparing a morning drink. Instead of mindlessly reaching for the kettle, the person commits to experiencing the process with full sensory awareness. The sound of the water heating, the scent of the coffee grounds or tea leaves, the warmth of the mug in the hands. Each sensation becomes an anchor. This is not just a mindful moment. It is a neurological training session, teaching the brain to focus its energy on the present reality rather than dissipating it on future worries or past regrets. When this disciplined attention is applied to this singular, small act, the mind is subtly programmed for greater focus when tackling larger challenges later in the workday, conserving the mental energy required for senior wellness and cognitive longevity. This dedication to initial focus is not about achieving more, but about expending less. It is a subtle declaration to the self that the day will be guided by intention, not impulse. A subtle but significant aspect of this early cognitive alignment is the protection against attentional fatigue. By deliberately delaying exposure to novelty and complexity, the person avoids prematurely activating the default mode network, DMN, in a stressful manner. The DMN, responsible for self-referential thought and mind-wandering, can become a source of anxiety if not managed. Yet a calm start allows it to integrate naturally, preventing the scattergun focus that plagues modern life. The failure to establish this cadence early can lead to a state of chronic distraction, making the individual perpetually susceptible to external demands. This is the precise point where focused energy, essential for complex tasks and aging with energy, begins its slow, irreversible leak. What daily routine am I allowing to unintentionally drain my focus? The discipline of sustained attention. The 90-minute focus cycle sustained attention, the ability to concentrate on a single task over an extended period, is not a fixed genetic trait, but a highly perishable skill that must be trained, much like a muscle. In the modern landscape of perpetual notifications and fractured work patterns, this capacity is the true premium currency for anyone seeking healthy aging and high performance. The underlying challenge is that the brain is not designed for continuous, undifferentiated effort. It thrives on cycles of intense focus followed by periods of genuine, restorative rest. Attempting to push through an 8-hour block of work without strategic breaks leads inevitably to what is known as decision fatigue and attentional residue, where previous tasks subtly clutter the mind, diminishing the quality of focus on the current one. This ineffective effort not only burns out the individual, but also compromises the long-term health of cognitive function. A key mechanism in maximizing this focus involves the ultradian rhythm, which dictates that the body and brain perform optimally in cycles approximately 90 to 120 minutes long. During the peak of this cycle, prefrontal cortex activity is at its highest, enabling deep concentration. Pushing past this natural physiological window leads to a sharp decline in mental efficiency and an increase in mistakes. The strategic worker, therefore, structures their day to align with these natural pulses, dedicating 90-minute blocks exclusively to the most demanding tasks, followed by a complete mental separation from work. Heng consistently teaches that energy follows attention, making the quality of focus paramount. He views external distractions as merely symptoms of an internal lack of discipline. For an individual in the longevity niche, this translates into a practical command: eliminate all potential interruptions during the 90-minute block. This is a commitment not only to the task but to the self, a non-negotiable pact to protect the dedicated time. The use of simple, analog tools or the physical isolation of the workspace becomes a reflection of this internal resolve. It is in this focused immersion that the deepest learning and most creative problem-solving occur, building new neural pathways and strengthening existing cognitive reserves. However, a counterexample or limitation to the 90-minute cycle model is encountered in collaborative, project-based work environments that demand constant, immediate communication. An individual cannot simply vanish for an hour and a half when the team structure requires real-time input. In these cases, The person must adapt by identifying the minimum viable focus unit, perhaps 25 minutes, and fiercely protecting that block, communicating the unavailability to the team clearly and concisely. The principle of non-interruption remains, but the duration is adjusted to the external constraint, acknowledging that perfect adherence is sometimes impractical, but intentional focus is never impossible. A powerful applied scenario involves a person struggling with a complex document or writing project. Instead of allowing the email client and chat applications to run in the background, the individual physically closes all unnecessary windows, puts the phone in a drawer, and sets a timer for 90 minutes. They then commit to making zero-context switches during this time, even if a new idea for an entirely different task surfaces. The mind, knowing it cannot escape the current activity, eventually settles into a flow state. This is not about brute-forcing productivity. It is about creating a secure mental container where high-quality cognitive work can safely unfold. At the end of the block, the person takes a mandatory, non-stimulating rest, not by scrolling social media, but by walking or simply staring out a window, allowing the brain to process the work without adding new input. This is the act of strategically withdrawing attention to preserve daily vitality. It is worth noting that the systematic training of focused attention strengthens the mind's ability to resist the pull of internal distraction as well. The practice of bringing a wandering mind back to the task at hand, over and over within the 90-minute window, is the essence of building mental resilience. This repetition, though taxing, ensures the longevity of the person's ability to concentrate, providing a significant advantage in senior wellness. It is a quiet, continuous effort that allows one to sustain a high level of mental performance well into the later years, making the most complex tasks manageable. How can I better structure my day around my brain's natural energy peaks? The nutritional strategy for cerebral endurance, the concept of brain fog and midday energy crashes, is widely accepted as an inevitable consequence of the modern pace of life, yet is often a direct result of fueling the brain with insufficient or inappropriate resources. Just as an endurance athlete must carefully manage their glucose, electrolyte, and nutrient intake, the individual focused on age with energy must approach nutrition as a critical, non-negotiable lever for cognitive performance and longevity. The prevailing common enemy is the simple, carbohydrate-heavy, nutrient-poor diet that creates volatile blood sugar swings, which are disastrous for sustained attention and mental clarity. The central mechanism here lies in the direct link between blood glucose stability and prefrontal cortex function. The brain, while only accounting for about 2 of body weight, consumes roughly 20 of the body's total glucose and oxygen. When blood sugar spikes rapidly due to refined sugars and starches, the ensuing crash, the reactive hypoglycemia, starves the brain of its primary fuel, leading to the sudden drop in focus and energy known as brain fog. Chronic, large-scale fluctuations in blood sugar also contribute to systemic inflammation and the creation of advanced glycation end products, AGEs, which are implicated in neurodegenerative conditions, directly undermining longevity. The master of self-discipline, Heng teaches that what is consumed affects the stillness of the mind. In the realm of nutrition, this means favoring foods that offer a slow, steady release of energy and are rich in compounds that support neuronal health. This approach dictates a consistent preference for complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, particularly omega-3 fatty acids found in sources like fatty fish, and high-quality, sufficient protein to support neurotransmitter synthesis. These components ensure a stable glucose supply and provide the structural materials necessary for the maintenance of healthy cell membranes, which is a key requirement for healthy aging. The observation is often made that the world rewards complexity, and therefore the person should look for complex solutions. However, a counterexample or limitation to this clean eating strategy arises in travel or highly stressful periods where access to perfectly balanced, fresh meals is difficult. In such a scenario, the perfect becomes the enemy of the good. Instead of abandoning the strategy, the person focuses on the elimination of the worst offenders, namely liquid sugars and highly refined convenience foods. The limitation is managed by carrying simple, non-perishable sources of healthy fat and protein, like nuts or high-quality protein bars, to mitigate the inevitable pitfalls of limited food choices. This is a practical compromise that maintains the foundational principle of blood sugar stability. An essential applied scenario involves the strategic use of coffee, often viewed as a simple energy booster. Instead of consuming large, sweetened lattes that create a sharp energy peak followed by a crash, the individual focuses on a smaller, unsweetened quantity consumed after a meal containing fat and protein. This pairing slows the absorption of the caffeine, delivering a more prolonged and gentler stimulation that aligns better with the focus window. The person could also integrate a disciplined, focused approach to the preparation of tea or coffee, as Heng Yi's philosophy suggests, turning the ritual itself into a moment of mindful concentration, further anchoring the brain's alertness. This small adjustment turns a potential cognitive stressor into a managed, sustained energy tool for daily vitality. The careful selection and timing of food, therefore, is not a burden, but an act of proactive self-management. It is important to emphasize that hydration plays an equally critical, though often overlooked, role in cerebral endurance. Even mild dehydration can measurably decrease attention span, memory function, and executive processing speed. This simple mechanism is often the hidden source of afternoon fatigue, and a consistent, disciplined intake of water throughout the day is a cornerstone of this nutritional strategy. Where in my daily nutrition am I sabotaging my focus and energy? The integration of rest and micro-recovery for cognitive longevity, the final, and perhaps most misunderstood, principle of sustained cognitive performance and senior wellness is the strategic integration of rest. The modern narrative often glorifies perpetual activity, creating an ingrained belief that time spent not actively working is time wasted. This common enemy belief leads to chronic sleep deprivation and the failure to take meaningful breaks throughout the day, ironically resulting in a lower cumulative output and a faster rate of age-related cognitive decline. True longevity of focus is not achieved through relentless exertion, but through a disciplined, cyclical process of energy expenditure and deliberate, high-quality replenishment. The mechanism underpinning this is the role of the glymphatic system, a network that functions primarily during deep sleep to clear metabolic waste products from the brain. One of the key waste products is the amyloid beta protein, the accumulation of which is strongly linked to Alzheimer's disease. Chronic sleep deficit directly compromises the efficiency of this nightly cleansing process, allowing toxins to accumulate and impairing neuronal function. Furthermore, scheduled breaks during the workday are essential for the consolidation of working memory. During these pauses, the brain shifts into a lower energy state that actually strengthens the neural connections formed during the preceding focused work. Heng Yi's framework stresses that true strength is found in the ability to release and recenter. This philosophy translates to a non-negotiable commitment to sleep and the adoption of micro-recovery during the day. The individual must view 8 hours of high-quality sleep not as a luxury, but as the primary tool for longevity and cognitive resilience. The bedroom becomes a sanctuary free of digital screens, reinforcing the mental separation between the day's tasks and the night's deep, restorative work. The consistency of the sleep schedule, known as sleep hygiene, is more critical than the occasional long sleep-in. The Allies pause is a good time to remember that maintaining this level of deliberate practice is an investment in the self that future generations may come to recognize as the true foundation of well-being. The reflective point is that many individuals, despite intellectually grasping the importance of rest, consistently fail to prioritize it, often because they confuse mere relaxation with genuine cognitive recovery. A counterexample or limitation occurs when sleep is disrupted not by poor habits, but by external factors, such as chronic pain or the needs of a small child. When 8 continuous hours of sleep are impossible, the strategy must pivot to maximizing the quality of the available sleep and integrating brief, intentional rest periods, naps, or deep relaxation breaks during the day. The limitation of fragmented night is thus partially compensated by strategically leveraging the body's ability to recover in short, powerful bursts, keeping the overall cognitive load manageable. The most valuable applied scenario involves the daily use of micro-recovery. After a demanding 90-minute focus block, the person commits to a 5-minute break that involves no digital screen. Instead, they might stand up, walk to a window, and perform a brief, concentrated breathing exercise, the 4-7-8 technique, for instance. This seemingly small interruption is a neurological reset button, preventing the buildup of attentional residue and fatigue. The quality of the next work block is significantly higher, proving that the time lost to rest is more than recouped by the increase in cognitive efficiency and the preservation of age with energy. This is the art of controlled oscillation, the rhythm of high-intensity effort and total, deliberate release. The synthesis of Heng Yi's focused, disciplined approach to daily living resolves the initial promise. Sustained vitality is the direct consequence of intentional, repeated acts of self-mastery. The disciplined mind, anchored by a calm morning, fueled by stable glucose, and refreshed by strategic rest, is one that not only functions at a high level, but is also actively fortifying itself against the erosive forces of time and distraction. The framework provided, morning cadence, focused work cycles, cerebral nutrition, and restorative rest, is not a static set of rules, but a dynamic, self-regulating system that ensures the person's cognitive and physical energy remain high, making the later decades of life a period of sustained power and clarity. The most profound realization is that the secret to living longer with energy was never external. It was always waiting to be unleashed through the rigorous, compassionate discipline of the present moment. If I truly value my peace, what essential rest must I schedule today?